To finish our project, of course, we need to trim out the interior. Sheetrock returns are commonly used in this case for windows, and that's certainly an option. But since you may have some wet pets passing through, wood returns could be a better choice. This is most easily installed if you pre-build a wood return box with the casing, and then you can just plug it in. When building the return box, be aware of these points in advance. It spans from the interior edge of the pet door to the interior wall face. It obviously has to fit inside the rough opening width and height. It can't interfere with the inswing of the flap. Some clearance is needed at the bottom for swinging the security panel in place. And finally, it can't interfere with the security panel lock pin hole at the top. That might seem like a lot to factor in for a simple box, but we only want to do this once. Follow these simple steps and everything will fall in place. I purchased finger-jointed wood baseboard as my box material, simply because it's readily available, inexpensive, and already primed. I'll be cutting off the profile, so be sure to buy stock that's wide enough even after this is cut off. It's typically 9/16 inch thick. 1/2 inch thick is fine as well. If you use thicker material, remember the interference points I just mentioned and plan accordingly. And I'm using a common 2 1/4 inch wide interior casing, again easily available. Measure the return depth by placing a scrap in the rough opening against the interior edge of the pet door frame and mark the scrap along the interior wall face. Check in a few locations in case there's a slight variation, and then use the deepest dimension. Use this mark as a reference and cut material to width. Next, cut the box returns to length. 2 sides, a top and bottom, the same as the overall pet door frame dimensions. Even though your door is already installed, you can still get these frame dimensions from the exterior. That gives me this. Since I'm going to sandwich the top and bottom between the sides, I need to then trim the top and bottom length by the thicknesses of the 2 sides. Stack the 2 sides and mark just one end for the cut mark. Note that the back face of baseboard isn't flat, but that won't be visible. So for assembly, we'll square up the corners using the inner flat face, with the thicker edge on the work surface. Align and assemble the box. With fasteners of your choice. Flip the extension box over, because the thicker edge will actually face the interior to receive the casing. I want about 1/8 inch of the interior return edge exposed, so I'll mark that at each corner using a thin scrap for a spacer. Mark, cut, and assemble the interior picture frame using the marks as a reference. Secure the picture frame to the return box, evenly spaced around the perimeter. Now would also be a good time for me to pre-paint it to match the baseboard. I'll dry fit the box to get an idea of the alignment. Notice I have jiggle room in all directions, and I'll install the pin as a minimum height reference, but scoot the box a bit higher to give the pin easy clearance. This should still leave sufficient clearance at the bottom. Make a reference mark and remove the pin so the box drops all the way down, and then find shims just thick enough to meet the line. Tuck the shims under the box and shift the door side to side so that the reveal is consistent on each side. Then secure with finish nails through the casing. Double check the operation of the flap, security door, and pin. I'll putty up the nail holes and touch up the paint. Sweet.